Hi, I'm Ian Wiley. I'm sailing Trelane round Britain and Ireland over the autumn of 2022 and the spring of 2023 to support the Andrew Castle Foundation, who got me back sailing and racing independently after a spinal injury and serious mental illness. Their work in promoting disability inclusion in sailing inspires me. Good morning and welcome back to Sailing Trelane. This morning I am working in the heads, that's nautical speak for the bathroom, and in this boat I'm very fortunate and it fits my needs very well because essentially the whole forward part of the boat is designated to livability, to shower and toilet and that sort of facility, which makes this small boat much more usable for me. However, there are a few issues, one of which has been the cupboard which I'm currently sitting in, or I should say the remains of the cupboard that I am currently sitting in, because this is an ex-cupboard very much. So the problem was that it had fixed dividers in it which didn't fit any sort of need that I had, and the bay behind me, the cupboard as it's going to be, is going to be a medical storage facility essentially, where I can store equipment and supplies that I need to look after myself well. But there's a problem. People's medical needs change, sometimes quite dramatically. Mine have done so at various points, and also the manufacturers of medical supplies are not known for keeping a standardised packing size for their items. So something really simple like a product being unavailable can suddenly mean that you're getting catheters or other products in bags or boxes which are very different dimensions, which is a nightmare for designing a storage bay. So I've decided that whatever happens in this bay needs to be fairly open plan, but obviously able to be lashed down when the boat is at sea, and reconfigurable as much as is possible. The other thing that I'm doing in here is that the hull behind me is not insulated, so it's just glass fibre and water or air, and that can cause condensation and mould. Now, these things are not very desirable in a storage bay for medical equipment. In fact, they're not desirable in any bay, but you get my understanding. So one of the things that I've done to try and remedy this is that the heating fix that we put in has put a nice warm air heater at the bottom of this cupboard. So although it's not blowing into the cupboard, the natural heat from it rising off it by convection will percolate upwards. So the other thing that's going to be going on in here is that the cupboard shelves need to be permeable so that hot air or just draft can rise up through the cupboard and exit at the top. One of the other things that's been going on is that I've been dry fitting some dinky little 50-watt solar panels onto the guardrail, where on many boats you find a spray dodger that says the boat's name. These panels are going to be mounted onto a piece of plywood or possibly onto a dinky stainless steel framework in some, 10mm steel or something, which will allow them to hinge up like this so that they can take the best sun during the day. But at the same time, I want them to be able to fold flat like this so that they don't get in the way when the boat's docking or is in a tight spot. These are 50-watt panels, so I'll have two, one either side, and that's 100 watts of power, theoretical maximum, coming in 6 to 8 hours a day. So if we apply a fudge factor, kind of expect about half that, so 50 watts between the two panels, coming in most of the day, certainly at this latitude. That is a respectable amount of power, and it should go a long way to running things like navigation lights and electronics for navigation. Won't go a huge distance in terms of a power budget, and there are some other places on the boat where I could get a 50 watt panel maybe. The classic thing to do obviously is to put a big gantry on the stern of the boat and to whack a couple of 100 watt panels up there, or certainly in the case of this one 100 watt panel, and that would be really helpful in terms of power. But because I want to steer the boat with a wind vane, I don't really want to get into the business of putting a massive gantry onto her, because it will interfere with the airflow over the paddle of the wind vane that steers the boat. If I have to, I guess I'll have to go down that route, but I'd rather not. So the other thing that we're thinking about is how to get the power cables for the panel, how to get them into the boat in a good way that's going to not cause too many problems, and also so that the run to the distribution board is as short as possible, because the longer the run, the more you lose in resistance, and we don't have very much to lose. So probably going to be fitting a gland onto this coaming here to take the power through, but obviously, as you can see, there's cleats, 3 cleats, and we've got to avoid those, and we've got to avoid damaging the cable. So that's going to be an interesting problem to solve. But it appears that I can still use a measuring tape, because I wanted these panels to essentially sit between the 2 guardrails, so that when we're moored, these lines can come out from underneath the panel without causing any problems. So I'm pleased that the measurements have turned out to be what the measurements were meant to be.